Hello everyone and welcome to another video in the Rings of Power series. This time we're going to talk about what is going to happen in the second season. As you very well know by now, pretty likely, the show is filming season 2, even though it's going to take some time, maybe 2 years, before it arrives to the screens of Amazon Prime. Subscribers that still dare to watch this crap show. And already, thanks to Screen Rant, we have information that the Lord of the Rings of Power, will be more quote-unquote canonical, say the showrunners Payne and Patrick McKay. So, without further ado, let's dive into what these two buffoons had to say. Now, Screen Rant begins, of course, their article with some shilling, because of course you have to shill, right? They talk in the very first paragraph of their article about how much Season 2 is going to be more canonical than Season 1. Alright, fair enough. But at the same time, they talk about how, despite the changes in Galadriel, Elrond, Sauron, for example, the story that it's telling is generally accurate to Tolkien's texts. So let me get this straight. Season number 2 is going to be even more canonical, but Season 1 is in line with what Tolkien wrote? You're contradicting yourselves in the very first paragraph. Now, for anyone that has been paying attention to what the show is all about, and anyone that has read Tolkien's work, we know that this is not the case. First of all, because of the time compression, and maybe we can understand something like that. There have been other adaptations that have done it as well, but let's go to the meat of this criticism, and that is that nothing absolutely of what happened in this show in its first season makes any sense or is in line with what Tolkien wrote. First and foremost, because we have changes in the characters like Galadriel, Elrond, and Celebrimbor. I mean, Celebrimbor is supposed to be this blacksmith with the craft that, I mean, it has never been seen, such a craft. He is really talented in that sort of thing, and we don't get to see this in the show. He is completely stupid in regards to learning or knowing how metals work. He wants mithril, but he doesn't even know how this is going to work, you know. And we also have things like mithril, now that we mentioned it, being like this sort of power source for elves, you know. For elves, mithril is what the sun is to Superman, you know. Like, if they want to stop fading, they need mithril, and it's completely out of place and completely stupid. The rings are not forged all out of mithril or an alloy between metals. One of them is mithril, sure, but the others are silver and gold. So nothing of what we are seeing in this show is in line with what Tolkien wrote. So no, Screen Rant. Even in your first paragraph, you are contradicting yourselves. Now, the article continues, right, with some mentions of some reworked characters and things that happened there, but we have other things important here that I am going to mention as the article continues, and it says the following quote: in an interview with THR, the Lord of the Rings of Power showrunners Payne and Patrick McKay confirm a larger focus on Tolkien's canon in the show's second season. Payne and McKay use Sauron as an example, explaining how Rings of Power Season 2 will allow them to focus on building his character up. And they have to say the following quote: Season 1 opens with who is Galadriel? Where did she come from? What did she suffer? Why is she driven? We're doing the same thing with Sauron in Season 2. We'll fill in all the missing pieces. Sauron can now just be Sauron, like Tony Soprano or Walter White. He's evil, but complexly evil. We felt like if we did that in Season 1, he'd overshadow everything else. So the first season is like Batman Begins, and The Dark Knight is the next movie, with Sauron maneuvering out in the open. We're really excited. Season 2 has a canonical story. There may well be viewers who are like, this is the story we were hoping to get in Season 1. In Season 2, we're giving it to them, end quote. Now, if you paid attention to that, so it means that Sauron is now Tony Soprano or Walter White. So what? He's going to go to Mordor and he's going to start cooking mithril? Yeah, sure. Complexly evil. Let me tell you something that is also quite true about Tolkien's work. He defines quite well what good and evil are. And in the case of Sauron, he is evil because he was a corrupted Maya, you know. He is on the level of, say, the Balrogs and the Istari, that are the wizards like Gandalf and Saruman. And his power is corrupted by the first Dark Lord, that is Morgoth. Now, when Morgoth was changed by the Valar, because Morgoth was a Valar, it was up to Sauron to fill the void, so to speak, and he tried to become this Lord of the Middle Earth that we know about. And thanks to that, we know quite well what sort of evil he is. He's conniving, yes, he is deceitful, for sure, but that doesn't mean that he's complex like Walter White. The difference being that whereas Walter White started as a good individual with good intentions, that later on corrupted him, and that power that he got out of what he was doing began destroying his own nature, and this was a character that you at the beginning rooted for, because you knew that even though what he was doing was questionable and even immoral, his intentions behind it, like trying to save and help his family, were good, decent intentions. And in this case we have Sauron, and if you started rooting for him, you know, as the show progressed in its first season, I couldn't blame you, because he is one of the very few relatable characters that you've got in this thing, first and foremost, but also because this is a character that does not go through that process of starting out with good intentions and then being corrupted by his own power. He was corrupted by Morgoth, but way before even he stepped into Middle-earth. By the time that he went to Middle-earth, he was already corrupted, and the means of corruption were different, the justification for his downfall were different, and his procedures and the way that he also conducted himself all through the first age and the second age, all are different. He doesn't need to be Walter White, nor does he need to be like Tony Soprano, and certainly this thing doesn't need to be Batman Begins or the Dark Knight trilogy, you know. And whereas the Dark Knight, for many, made Batman Begins even better retroactively because of the story being told and how it unfolded, in this case by claiming that they are now going to follow the canon. What they are saying is that, yeah, we didn't follow it at first, we didn't care about it, but we're going to now. And since they broke so many things from season 1, the question remains in every fan's mind: how are they really going to try and pull this off? There are still many people out there that have faith that this is going to improve and want this thing to improve. But let's be honest here. If the same people are behind this thing, how many chances does it have to improve? And how many chances does it have to really just repeat itself, you know, repeat the same mistakes, repeat the same flaws, repeat the same situations? They didn't want to add this in the first season because they didn't want to take the spotlight from Galadriel. And we have seen this also take place in, for instance, WandaVision from Disney+. They said that they were going to have Doctor Strange appear there so that the character could have a connection to that film as well, the Multiverse of Madness. And at the end, they decided against it because they didn't want a man to take the spotlight away from a woman, a female lead, right? We have a similar situation here right now with Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay talking about that with Sauron and Galadriel. Now, is this really the reason that they didn't want to add that, or are they saying this just to save face and to try and win the fandom back? Oh, don't worry, we know that season 1 sucked, but we promise you that season 2 is going to get better. So trust us in this one and hop along. You're going to have a good time. If you believe that, if all the evidence that we have had, not only from the Rings of Power or from Amazon's adaptation of Tolkien's work, and I'm going to use that as with major quotes, if that does not convince you, then look at everything we have had before as well. From Star Trek to Star Wars to Masters of the Universe to many other things that we have had along the years. And how many times have they promised that the things are going to improve and that the story is going to get better and that this is now the definitive product that is going to resemble that which you used to love? And how many times has that been completely untrue? So if you trust them, if you believe what they are saying here right now, more shame on you, because they are quite trying to save face, in my opinion. They are trying to win you over, and they want to save their jobs as well. And you can't blame them. Of course, everyone wants to have a job, but if they didn't do right the first time, what makes you think that they're going to get it right the second time when they have destroyed the canon that they supposedly want to follow? To begin with, we will have to see how they are going to work out the fact that Sauron was left alone in Mordor for many years. I'm talking about quite 1,000 years around, when Galadriel already knows who he is and where he is located, because she saw the formation of Mordor. She was there, even though she shouldn't have survived that, but alright. And you are telling me that she's going to focus on the forging of the rings, and she's going to use the rings, and she's not going to openly go to war against Sauron now that she knows who he is, and she's the only one that knows who he is and hasn't told anyone? I mean, that in itself breaks most of the canon that follows Sauron during the Second Age, and part of the Third Age as well. So, you saying that you are going to follow the canon this time, I'm sorry guys, but I just don't buy it. Those are my Viking views. Let me know yours down below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one.